as your business partner, here's some things that build on your idea in a safer way. They don't know I'm saying in a safer way, but here's a few things that I'm building on your idea, acknowledging it's a problem, and here's some options for you. And I found that as a technique to win favour with pretty much all of these stakeholders, who were the most difficult stakeholders I've ever worked with. And I loved it, and I thrived there.
Hello, Jen.
Hi.
We finally made it.
Yes, we did.
This is the second time we are in a position that we're going to be talking to each other.
Yeah.
Interesting topics every single time. The first time was virtual. Now we're sitting in person.
Yeah.
I prefer this a lot better than
Me too.
virtual session. So hopefully this is also going to be a lot better in terms of conversation. Today we're talking about an important topic, which is the evolution of HR, but also how do you adapt and thrive during this entire evolution. So before we get started, thank you, Jen, once again for joining me in this podcast. And would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Jennifer Longden, Jen, and I'm a Chartered Fellow of the CIPD, and I work for Pollinate, which is a fintech based in the city, and probably the most exciting job I've had in a long time because I get to work with you.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God. I didn't expect that. But thank you so much, Jen. And also really exciting. I was actually having a chat behind, before we started this podcast with the lovely crew that we have here. How it's also interesting to be able to have partners like yourself, because it just makes my life and my work that much more enjoyable. So thank you so much, Jen.
No problem.
Oh, we're just full of compliments. Jen, let me dig, just get into the mix of it. We obviously had a pre-recording call before this, and we were talking about, the changes that companies are going through and the resilience that has to come with it, so because you have to keep moving forward, you have to keep pushing through. So let's talk about the changes. And I know there's been a lot of change since the pandemic, and I think we're continuing to see those changes even now. So there was a pandemic, we all went to lockdown, and then off the back of it, things started looking a little bit better. But then there was a new dynamic, remote working started. Now we've moved kind of into a hybrid mode. But then there's an economic downturn, budget cuts. When does it all end? We don't know. But we have to keep on adapting to change. So that requires a lot of resilience and quick adaptation. So talk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to be in a place where we're not changing. Obviously, going back to Darwinism, evolution, change is survival of the fittest. And I don't think with technology and AI that we're ever really going to be able to get ahead like we used to. It's just going to be constant change. So the more resilient we are and the more time we take to build those resilient skills from an organizational level and a personal level, I think we all have to take a bit of accountability in terms of our own professional development by bringing well-being into it, and develop our own resilience to really face these challenges, which are going to be continual from the day you start work to the day you leave.
Change is the only constant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how do you I think especially it's great you touched on AI. I mean, I keep thinking, we're the tech space and we're so close to AI. I still feel almost every single day that I feel left behind, and I'm thinking I'm in this space and I feel this way. What about everybody else?
Yeah.
So things have drastically changed, obviously, but it's really how soon you adapt to this change or get left behind. So how do you adapt to change? Because that's not easy. Yeah. Everything is easier said than done.
Well, it's interesting because, I have a theatre background.
Yes.
And I have learned probably more from theatre than anything, which I'm sure my school and university would be pleased to hear. But it is basically, you have to face fear. You have to face change in the face of it. You can't run away from it. If you run away from it, then you're going to just keep getting more punches. So the more that you can face up to it and develop the skills to cope and go with it and let go, the more that you can change and evolve with it. If that makes sense. I don't know if I repeated myself there. But say in improvisation theatre, you are confronted straight away with a suggestion. It is my job to acknowledge and receive that suggestion and then yes and it. Okay, so you come to me with a concept, you've got your foot trapped. I say, oh my God, this bloody farmer with, the fox's trap. Are you okay? I can't, now I've got my hand cut. What do we do? And we're both stuck there, and we could be sitting there like dying, but we could be having a conversation, telling each other how much we love each other, or, I wonder what's on Coronation Street tonight. I can't believe I've mentioned Corrie. Everyone's been laughing about it. But you build a world around the event that's just happened, and you normalize it. And then from that, comedy comes, and then you look for the glittery moments of the stupid things that you've said. And then, comedy ensues, and it's 30 minutes, and everyone thinks, how on earth wasn't that scripted? How on earth did you not prepare for that? It's because I just faced into that fear. I had no idea that you were going to get your, ankle caught in a fox trap. That went along with it, and I got my hand caught in it too, and now we're both dying, but that's really funny. Yeah. So it's the concept of not stepping back, not being afraid, just dive in and see where things take you. I didn't want to have a career in HR, but I'm here and I'm fully, embracing it, and I love my job. I love working for the people that I work with, and I love them as people. And where else would I be? I don't know. But I steered into it, and I found out that that's a really good career for someone like me who needs to think on their feet and dance around, what's happening in the world and make things okay for people. And I think I am resilient because of the skills that I've learned in theatre, and they are totally transferable to the world of HR, and they're totally transferable to the world of business, particularly if you're looking at strategy and yes-anding ideas. You can yes-but them and guide strategy in a right way, but it's a really great way of opening up a window to change.
Also, it's interesting you speak about improv, because when you look at, every industry is different, but companies within each industry are also different. So a little bit like improv, if you're working for Pollinate versus you working for something else, you also have to keep on, improving. I don't even know if that's a word, but as and when things go wrong or things change, you have to come up with solutions. I mean, I don't think really there's like a black book or like a playbook how to do HR, so because every company is different. And the reason every company is different, because a company is nothing but a collective of people, and people are just different. So how does that correlate into, now you working for Pollinate and the challenges that you face day to day?
So prior to Pollinate, I was working at a company called Open Banking, and I started there as I started my improv journey. So I'd come from a theatre background. I'd done a bit of stand-up comedy, not really me, but I found improv at the moment I started work at Open Banking. The stakeholders were so tough, and every day it was fighting for survival, because we just had such a big mandate to deliver. There were so many problems for the project to deliver in the time frame it had to get so many people, and we had no processes and what have you. So I had to learn very quickly to listen to the people around me, and those skills I learned from improv. And also, if you give them options, So they come to you with an initiation, not quite clear on what they're wanting. And I look at the little guidebook that we have, which is the law, and think, you got crazy on me. And but giving them options that look like, I agree with you. I agree with what you're saying. That is a problem. I hear you. And I understand that that's something that is really bugging you right now. But as your business partner, here's some things that build on your idea in a safer way. They don't know I'm saying in a safer way, but here's a few things that I'm building on your idea, acknowledging it's a problem, and here's some options for you. And I found that as a technique to win favor with pretty much all of these stakeholders, who were the most difficult stakeholders I've ever worked with. And I loved it, and I thrived there. And made a huge impact with the technology teams because they could really see I was trying to improve things for them as well. And technology teams to me are just like the people who I used to work with in theatre and putting on a production. It's the same mentality. So I feel like I've worked with them my whole life. Then moving to Pollinate, it was the lockdown. I started on the day of the lockdown and I didn't know anyone. And that was a different concept. And I came in with my improv mind, which was very well accepted at Open Banking because they were like, crazy Jen knows what she's doing. It wasn't at Pollinate. Pollinate was trying to, well, it was more of a corporate feel in some respects, but because it had that professional edge. Open Banking was a mess. It was crazy. And we all were walking around thinking we knew what we were doing. But it was more polished at Pollinate, and I was everything came across. I was working with the best minds in the business, but I didn't really know who they were. I didn't have that rapport with them, meeting them face to face. And it took me a while to build that level of trust across the organization. But the way I did it is through listening. So again, improvisation, active listening is the most important skill that anyone can have if they want to understand their environment, understand the personalities and characters that they're facing off against, and supporting them in an HR function that can pivot at any moment to what they need. And I had an incredible manager at Pollinate who I loved working with. I mean, we had different approaches and we butted heads sometimes, but that was needed to get us to where we needed to be. And we built an HR people team that was truly capable of anything that you wanted to do to support the business. And it took a while, but it was all through improv skills. I even managed to deliver improv.
Wow.
Yeah, I did an improv session, a couple of them, and it was brilliant to teach those skills, active listening, initiations, supporting, giving gifts. I always say to people, if you're going into a meeting that's going to be difficult and you know it's going to be a challenge, give a gift. It doesn't have to be a physical gift. It could be an emotional gift. Think of something in your pocket. Like, what would that someone really want? And if you give the gift of support or emotional empathy and listening, you can't go wrong. And then you just find you're not alone. And HR can often be pigeonholed into this area of personnel. And we're so far past personnel that we still have to argue the case that HR does the contracts and, manages holiday, right? But we really should be business partnering with the organization and looking at its capabilities, looking at how, from an organizational psychology point of view, how healthy it is. Because if you don't understand that, you can't manage the change programs that the organization faces. Well, if you don't understand it and you deliver these change programs, you are going to face resistance at every step. And some of them are hard change programs that you have to do in HR. I mean, you mentioned the economy. It's been tough for a lot of people, but our organization is incredible. Like the people that I work with and the resilience that they have, and maybe perhaps our partnership with Plumm has helped steer that. We've done a hell of a lot around wellbeing since the start of the pandemic, but certainly having Plumm in our toolkit and talking about resilience, talking about mental health, I think makes it come across like this is a real truth to pollinate. This really means something to us. So you guys better get on board. And it matters to it really matters to our team leads. They talk about it, and the teams acknowledge it. Sometimes, like, what it is like, they're like, oh yeah, whatever. But we do talk about it, and we do check in. We have regular check-ins with people, and I speak to my team leads all the time. How is that person doing? We spend more time talking about people's personal lives and checking in and making sure they're okay than we do sometimes about the work. And that's because it's authentic. So that when we do have the need to tighten or to push and to change in certain areas and pull those strings, people understand why. And they know that we're being authentic when we're saying we want to look after you, we want to do right by you. And the culture is incredible. And I think it exists outside of the organisation saying it exists. It's it belongs to the teams and our people, and they're just the most incredibly talented and resilient bunch of people I've ever met.
You spoke about culture and how it is outside of the organization as well. I think culture, I mean, everyone talks about culture and the importance of culture, but how do you really build culture, and whose responsibility is to build culture?
The CEO is always going to have an impact because they're bringing together a collection of people who they want and think like them in terms of this is the type of culture I want to set up. So there is influence from the top down that you just cannot deny. And that influence was with our previous CEO. And he wanted to set up a company where it was all about collaboration. It was all about energy and passing that energy so that people collaborate, they share information, and they enjoy the journey. And there have been many iterations of that journey, and change. It's facing into change. It's quite clever that he did that.
I think there is a slight, I don't know what's the right word, misunderstanding, or, if I'm working for a company, the sole responsibility is on the company or maybe the HR team. And I think that's further from the truth. Yes, there is a fundamental, foundational responsibility, but I think, like you rightly said, really understanding yourself, understanding each other, being that support system for each other. I think that collective work or effort is important. Just relying on HR or just relying on the company to fix the problem, quote unquote, I think that causes a lot more problems than good. And I think changing that narrative is super important. But I'm just thinking, again, whose responsibility is for that narrative to change, or that awareness to spread? Is it HR? Is it the leadership?
So I ran a lot of workshops internally so that people could really understand what we mean by our culture, and to live and breathe those behaviours, and to acknowledge that these are actually what is going on. So I ran a lot of workshops. So it does become HR's responsibility. A lot of HR people haven't got a theatre degree, and a lot of HR people don't do improv. So, designing that and delivering that training.
I was actually going to say this before, but I'm going to say it now because you reminded me again. I think maybe this should be like a line item in the CIPD courses. Okay, improv, level X.
Yeah, there's a guy who's written a book who I love so much, called Neil Malarkey. And he's written a book called In the Moment. Every line manager, anyone responsible with strategy, and every CEO should be reading that book.
Really?
In the Moment. Because it's all about how to apply the principles of improv in the real world.
Oh, amazing.
As in business.
I'm going to give that a read.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Please do. He's the Comedy Store players. He works with Josie Lawrence and Cruise Liners Anyway, and he came from Second City, which is improv theatre in Chicago.
Wow.
So there's nothing he doesn't know about improv, and he works with companies to help them shape strategy around the idea of using improv. So definitely look him up.
Thank you for that. Talking about leadership, Jen. So, you spoke about, the top down, if you're talking about culture. It's interesting also that you said the book highly recommends that every leader, every manager, every CEO perhaps should read that book and actually maybe even apply. talk about leadership. So it's great that you have a great culture. A lot of companies would like to think they have a great culture, but maybe they don't. How much of an impact does the leadership team have in building that culture and that support unit? And a follow-up question to that is, okay, and how can the leadership come to that place to be able to have that mindset first for themselves and then throughout the organization?
Yeah, I grind them down.
Good for you. Good for you.
When it comes to the previous CEO, he knew what he meant by the values. And our current CEO is a co-founder, so she is very aware of what the values mean. But values and culture, to me, are two separate things. The values are these words on a wall sometimes that people put up, and everyone thinks, oh yeah, there are values, but they don't really know how they work. So what I did, I was actually doing a master's at the time, is I took our values to see how they were embedded in the organization, kind of expecting them not to be honest. Because they were based around sort of a Japanese Aikido, but found that they had a high level of relevance. So the values existed, but the culture is about how those values are enacted on a day-to-day basis, and actually psychological safety. Like, what does that, how does that exist? Does that exist in the organization? And do the behavioral values support that level of psychological safety that's needed for high performance? And it was all tick, 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 like 99.9% yes. So brilliant. First time I've ever done the maths on that scale. I was very proud of myself because I'm dyscalculus. I was very proud of myself to evidence that link. When I went to the business and showed them how I believe the culture works, it was like, oh, brilliant. That's really great. That's really wonderful that you've identified that. What's the next thing in the agenda, you know? So I didn't feel like it got from the management team at the time the attention it really needed, because they trusted me with it. But our current CEO, since she became CEO, of the level of trust that she has in me and the organization and the people has been so high.
Wow.
Like it's sky high. And she is all about culture. She set up culture champions because she wants to make sure that the culture is lived and breathed, and that's the experience. Some people think, oh, we want to get back to before 2020 and, you know, bring that same energy. And she's like, yes, but we need to recognize we're not in 2019 anymore. How do we evolve and shape the culture? So she's steering it. She's actively steering it. The other managers aren't as involved. The CTO he lives and breathes this in his bones anyway. The two of us are like very similar. We could be sat here now talking till the cows come home about all things culture. And probably music in the 90s. But he's somebody I inherently just vibe off, and he gets it. So that's the CEO and the CTO. The other two are very commercially focused. Their attention isn't on the organization. I mean, it is, but they're commercially focused, and the level of stress that they have, you don't want to be bombarding them all the time with culture. But they're also quite data-led. So you need to be able to talk to them on a level that they get, and you're not wasting their time. So it's about how you present the information of culture so that they get it, and then they show it through their behaviors. And for instance, my director is the most honest speaker. So when he's challenged with hard conversations, town halls, he is the most honest and transparent person. And from there, everyone can build and move forward. So they all display, despite having different personalities and thoughts of culture, different ways of doing it. And sometimes you have to appreciate that a senior manager might not want to understand it to the level that you do. But as long as they're on board with it and they show it, and then they haven't got behaviours that are anti-culture, then you can do a lot with them.
I think that's it, really. I mean, as long as the behaviors are not anti-culture, because you can't expect everyone to do everything all the time. I mean, you need that yin and yang anyway. Like you spoke, some of the leaders are commercially focused, some of them are, so engraved in the culture, and that just balances the entire organization.
Yeah.
But having those stakeholders in the management, leadership, C-suite, I think that is just absolutely critical.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you don't have that buy-in, what do you do?
Yeah, and they know everyone in the organisation.
Oh, nice.
They know everybody. They know something about their lives. Our CEO goes for lunch with people. She picks maybe 6 to 8 people. They all go for sushi together, and she talks to them, finds out what's going on in their lives. That's so important, so that when she's having honest conversations around change programs, anything like that, they're with her.
How do you think you can scale culture? Do you think a company can scale culture to this level if you grow, I don't know, 10x?
I mean, we're never going to be a business that's, got a 500 plus people, but I believe that she could still sit down every week with 8 people and chat to them.
Amazing.
I don't think that's impossible.
That's what it is, right? So, I mean, it is not really, you had 50 people, now you've got 500 people. How do I sit with 80 people? But that's not the point. It's really, can you consistently do that? Sit with 8 people, that's it.
Yeah.
And then it's a ripple effect. You sit with those 8 people, those 8 people sit with another 8 people, and then just impacts the entire organization.
Yeah. What it is that we hire exceptionally talented people, and they do not want to be ignored. They're bringing in their talents. They're doing amazing, amazing work, and they don't want their CEO walking past them. And ours doesn't. Doors open. She talks to people. She makes cups of tea. And for me, I haven't really come across a CEO quite like it.
It's so interesting that the solution to such a complex problem is so simple.
Yeah, it's listening.
That's it. But again, easier said than done. Active listening is harder than just talking.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people listen, but how many people actively pay attention?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I had my cousin come down from Manchester to do some work experience with me in the summer, year 10, always on the phone. And she was sat there with my CEO having dinner. Sorry, I'm from Manchester, so I say dinner, lunch. So I just don't think she recognised what was happening. She was still on her phone, just looking up and nodding. I was like, you're sat with the CEO of a fintech, not saying that with this great company, but actually her time of sitting there and asking her questions, and that meant a lot to me.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Talking about, you spoke about those commercial leaders, how you can then have a conversation with them, which is backed by data. Just talking about data in general, obviously, for HR these days, not just the importance of data, but the accessibility to data has changed over time because technology is evolving, and that leads into that, the future of HR conversation. Where do you think the future of HR is, let's say the next 3 years from now, really in the near future?
Near future, it is data. It's how we can use data to show where the problems are in a business and to fix those problems quickly. It's to retain talent by using that data, because talent is becoming less available, less skilled, and you want to retain as many people as you can. So I think in the immediate term, it's data from real-time information from systems, and then AI is changing. We discussed this quite heavily in our previous conversation, but for me, AI is really changing the nature of the role of HR. It's finally taking us away from personnel. So we are able to do the admin tasks very quickly. and focus on the things that matter to the organization. And I think HR people as a skill set are going to have to evolve on either become professional improvisers or they're going to have to become business partners where they're constantly learning and listening from the company to design people strategy, to deliver change programs, and to upskill organizations to retain talent. It's that's where I see the future of HR. I also think organizational psychology is going to be really important, how people are feeling. And that's where I feel the well-being space and the data that you provide is very interesting. So the more data rich we have on how people are feeling, we can react very quickly, and that can feed into our plans in terms of salary, can feed into our plans in terms of development, learning and development, what people want to do, but also, maybe our resilience is going down and maybe we need to spend some more time building up the organization because they've gone through this program of change and maybe feeling a bit burnt out. So how do we support that? That's going to be really interesting. I think organizational psychology and well-being is a big part of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the entire mental health space within the workplace has taken a little bit of hit. We spoke about the downside in the economy, budget cuts and so on. And I think, it's still looked at as a benefit. And, when times are tough, the first things that goes off your list is benefits. Okay, so let the benefits go out because we just need to look at essentials. That's why one of the fundamental reasons we expanded into the HR space as well, so from a supposedly good to have to a must have space. Of course, mental health is still at our core. But I think, it's important for organizations to understand the importance of this kind of data and this kind of support. Because, yes, you've got tools and processes, but it's the human beings that are actually in the organization doing the actual work. And human beings have, mental health, emotion, and, organizational psychology plays a huge part in that. So developing your human beings first, supporting those human beings so that they can then support the business and the processes and the tools that you're creating.
Yeah. And also the new generations that are coming up into the workforce.
Oh, yeah.
I forget what they're called.
Gen Zs?
Zs. It's terrible that I do that. It changes all the time, and that's the one change I'm not really on top of. But I do feel, and I hear quite a lot, that they don't like inauthenticity. And they can spot it a mile off. Whereas with me, I'm like, when's that happening there? And I might wait for the end of the film to really understand the impact. They've probably guessed the ending from the moment the title credits are going up. So at the beginning, so the opening credits. So it just feels like we haven't really got the time to go back from the well-being space. Because if we did, not only would that have huge impact on our teams in terms of we don't have the resources, you're not focusing on our physical fitness and our mental fitness. Also, what else can we trust that's not going to be pulled away? Because that matters to us and we really care about it. And these are very basic things that someone who's grown up on an age of TikTok, if you don't have them, you're going to be held accountable. So, and they just won't come to you. They don't want to be at a desk. Speak to that generation.
Correct.
It's the worst thing. I didn't want to be on a desk either, but I move about a bit too much to be at the desk. Actually, my step count in the office is quite high.
Oh, there you go.
Somehow I managed to break the step count. But I do believe that you have to act authentically as an organisation more now than ever, particularly if you're going to attract talent in the future.
Yeah, definitely, from attracting the right talent, but also retention or retaining the talent. Yeah. And I think the worst thing you can do, and this is like, I can't emphasize this enough, Plumm or no Plumm, if you've provided a service like this, oh my God, please don't take it back. Because now, I mean, this is just worse. You're now worse off than you never providing or never initiating an activity like this. Because, trust is so important, and it's so hard to build trust, but it's so easily taken away if you just do one, mistake like this. In my opinion, it would be a mistake.
Yeah.
And there's and there are ways to handle this. I mean, sometimes, yes, you do have budget constraints. Like, what do you do if you don't have the money? Yeah, you want to support your people, but what do you do? There can be a lot of other things that you can implement which perhaps don't require you to spend this much money. But I think really coming from a place of understanding the importance of, psychological safety and the importance of mental well-being and how that impacts your culture and then your organization, I think that is super, super critical.
Yeah, because our culture is very heavily based on psychological safety and everybody caring for each other. They're also, for the line manager, they have to say, okay, I can be a listening ear and I can help you to a point. So, and then they worry, and then they would come to me and they'd say, Jen, this person's in crisis. There's something going on here. Now, they know they've got Plumm.
Yeah.
Are you using Plumm? Have you reached out to a life coach? Have you reached out to a coach? Because these things come up at performance management time. I don't know what I'm doing. Is this it? They have these really honest conversations. I've had those honest conversations. Or having a toolkit that you can go back to, that the line manager can say, okay, here's the things that you have available to you. Have you done them? I encourage you to use this toolkit, rather than saying, this is a problem that I'm going to ruminate on, and I'm their line manager and I'll tell Jen and Jen can ruminate on it, and we're powerless to do anything about it other than counsel them. And we're not qualified to do that. I mean, sometimes I feel like I am the mother of everybody in the organisation, but I'm not qualified to take that. A lot of that energy stays with me and it burns me out.
Yeah.
So having a toolkit like Plumm is essential to my health, the line manager's health, and the health of the person who's actually going to use it.
Yeah, it's also not fair. It's not fair for any one of them. The person who's going through something, the person like the HR, or even the line manager who's not qualified. I think it's just not fair. Like you said, it's just that extra burden.
Yeah.
And also, signposting, you also have to be 100% sure you are signposting them to the right, place, because the last thing you want is to then backfire, because, they're your people. You're going to be seeing them every single day. Yeah. Hey, Jen, you pointed me to the right, wrong place, and now I just feel worse.
Yeah.
And then what? So I think that's, super critical. It was interesting, Jen, in a pre-recording, you spoke about the future of HR and how AI is now, the advancements of technology, and how we hopefully will be in a place where when HR comes in, they would skip all those initial steps. If you can touch on that a little bit, because I found that quite interesting, and there's a segue to that. So
yeah, I'm a bit envious of the people starting their HR careers, because they don't have to do the rubbish I have to do. Oh gosh, managing that inbox with all the requests, a letter for probation period, a letter for passing probation period, a letter for failing it, a letter for your goals, a letter to say this, slightest amendment to your contract, just the burden of admin. But you learn so much in that period. It's just a nightmare getting out of it, because wherever you go, there's always going to be that element of personnel. But I'm just really looking forward to the day of that being done. And the people that are coming into the HR profession will have to manage the human experience from day one. They won't be managing paperwork. AI is taking care of that. It might mean that there's less opportunity for people. So you might have one or two coordinators, and you might need somebody who's gone through a bit of a CIPD qualification before they come to you, maybe, because you're going to need them on sort of an HR advisory level at that business partnering. But I think you can train people on apprenticeships maybe, but they're going to have to come with almost psychology skills. Yeah. It's going to be a really interesting space to see how the CIPD develop that. Also, we're in a really interesting period at the moment because we've had a change in government. So the first time in a long time, particularly in my career, we're building on employment relations.
Correct.
Whereas they've been stripped back, not stripped back completely, but I mean, we've had some progressive, like shared parental leave, hasn't gone far enough, that have changed the employment landscape. But, day one rights, that's going to be hugely interesting, but also the relationship we're all going to start having with unions.
Correct.
And that's something that I actually raised at the CIPD conference not so long ago to Peter Cheese and the people that were on the stage with him. We're all going to have to become union friendly and understanding what unions do. At the moment, most HR people sit in a position of fear because they haven't used unions, they haven't worked with unions before. I haven't. So now I'm chomping at the bit to get involved and understand what it is that they want. How are they going to change things for the future? Because we're probably looking at maybe 8-10 years change. How are they going to influence that for private businesses like that I've worked in my career? Because it's usually public businesses that have of huge corporations. So I'd be very interested to see that. So maybe I would like to learn from the CIPD because I only got a small section in my studies that was on employee relations and I understood it. But it's different when it's practical, so when it's theory. And I'm looking forward to sort of turning over a new leaf and getting my teeth into something like that, Not saying that I want to unionize, far from it, but just understand what it is to work with a union and what are their plans to sort of engage with private sector companies. So that's all coming in the HR space.
It's interesting. We started this pod by saying, talking about how change is the only constant, and now we're talking about a lot of changes as well. And you rightly said, Jen, that most definitely, I'm guessing some jobs will evolve. Some jobs will not be required anymore, but there will be an evolution. A lot more jobs will be created. You're talking about, unions or anything else. I don't know. There's just so much that, the world is changing at a rapid speed. And we have AI has just accelerated that speed anyway. But I feel, one of the reasons, and this, I think you can resonate with that with this as well. A lot of the times this statement is thrown out that, the HR needs a seat in the boardroom. And I think one of the reasons why this has never been the case in the past is because HR, most of your time was bogged down with the personnel and with the admin. And finally, if you're able to take that away, you can then focus on what, in my opinion, really matters, which is the people and the strategy around the betterment of the people. So finally, you're there. Your sole purpose is to help those people thrive in their personal or professional life, because really everything is just linked, it's just correlated. And if you're able to do that, you're ultimately directly impacting and helping the company thrive.
Yeah.
So really, me as a CEO, if I could think what is the most valuable output from my HR team is if they're able to help our people thrive. That's it. Because your admin day-to-day paperwork, yes, it's important, but it's also not. If I had to make one choice, it would be, okay, how can you help my people thrive?
Yeah.
Because my people are my company. If they're thriving, the company's thriving.
Yeah. I totally agree. The sooner the admin's away, the better. But, currently working in the businesses that we work with, clients of ours, it is a really important process. But luckily, because I'm from that background, I understand where everything is and it should be in its place. And I work really hard to make sure everything is where it is. So I feel psychologically safe with my filing system, which if you went home, my filing system doesn't exist. But at work, it's pretty damn good. But and then I can thrive and I can do the things that the business asked me to do. Going back to the seat at the boardroom, it's quite interesting. I've always had this throughout my career. Oh, I've always had the ear of the CEO everywhere I've gone. Oh, hang on. No, not one place. That's fine. That was in real estate. I was working in the 1980s, but it wasn't. It was actually the 2000s. But it felt like
it just felt that long.
Yeah, actually, no, it was the teenies. It was 2013, I think. So no, yeah, it just felt like the 1980s. But I have always had the ear of the CEO wherever I've gone. So for me, yes, I've seen this hierarchy, and you go up to the Chiro, but for me personally, it's efficacy in my job. I don't really care about where I sit. I don't know whether that's because of my background, don't bow your cap to anyone, Jen. Oh, right, okay. Like that mentality, I don't see hierarchy. I do, but I don't really mind if I'm not in that room because I'm going to be told the second that door's open. And that room's quite intimidating at the time.
Yeah. I think what I maybe you do have a point. Well, what I really meant seat at the boardroom was to have a voice.
Yeah,
I think that's really important. Not necessarily really sitting in the boardroom, but that's a really good point because, I mean, I'm not too sure if other people in the HR space have the same experience as you did.
No,
because I speak to a lot of them and they don't. So I think also it's interesting that you've had that -1, and that we can ignore that because let's just say that it's been great that you've been given that, or you've had that opportunity to have that voice and that impact. But a lot of HR people don't feel this way.
Yeah.
They feel that we've just been told to do mostly it's process, mostly it's admin, mostly it's just that. Okay, people are coming in, coming out, and you just need to somehow process those people coming in, coming out, like file them in cabinets and then file them out.
Yeah.
Mostly it's just that, So definitely things are changing though. I think with the younger generation, like you rightly pointed out, the Gen Zs, I think the expectation has changed, and the expectation has not necessarily changed from a company's perspective, but people coming into the organizations. We just, younger generations are just, I just said we, I'm not a Gen Z. The younger generation is just expecting, different type of culture, different type of support. So that obviously now is going on to the company, and the company somehow really does not have a choice, but they have to change. So even if they're not giving a seat to the HR in the boardroom yet, or a voice, I think either they do it, or again, change is the only concept. Either they do it or they get left behind.
Yeah.
Like you rightly said, I think it's not only going to be a retention problem. First of all, how do you hire the great talent that is out there? Because they would not want to join you to start off with.
Yeah. You have to have influence. That's it. And whether you're in that boardroom or not, it's have you authentically got the influence to be able to take your strategy and for it to be heard. Previously, my director took our papers in, and she would be on the board, and she would have the influence for it to be heard, and it would all be done through agenda. I haven't got the patience for that. I genuinely don't. It's like, this is what I'm doing. Are you on board? No, why not? And then they'll tell me, I'll go and reshape it. And that, because I haven't got the time. That's how I am. It's how I've always behaved. I'm not somebody that can sit down and be told what to do. And I know that a lot of people, particularly in HR, who work in bigger HR organizations, I'm a standalone person that is putting out fire over there, and comet's coming.
Yeah.
So, there's a hell of a lot that I have to deal with on a daily basis. So I know I've got the ear of the people around me. And if I've got something bigger, a strategy piece that is bigger, I know it needs planning. And I need to know I'm influencing people from the moment I'm ideating. So I'll speak to my CTO. I'm thinking about doing this. What about that? Well, that's not really important right now, but what you could be doing is this. Yes. And then we thread together.
The dots, yeah.
And by the time I go to my CEO, they've got the Bayer tapestry in front of them. It's just presented in a way that I've got every person who can negatively influence the outcome of what I'm trying to do on board and more. And that's how I do it. You just can't go in cold. They haven't got the patience for it. And it's not just them, it's everywhere I've worked.
Some people listening to this podcast might just think that, Jen just got lucky that every single organization she worked with, she just had that opportunity. But off the back of what you just said, Jen, really you operate as a startup within a startup. You just don't have a time. And it's just strategy after strategy. So one stakeholder, second stakeholder, perhaps going to the stakeholders who would have the biggest pushback, and getting this buy-in and the second buy-in and the third buy-in, packaging it, your business case, and then finally presenting it to the CEO, who then does not really have any reason to say no. So I think the reason also, maybe, I surely think, 100%, the reason you have had that opportunity every single organization is simply because of the way you operate as well. I think you have created that environment for you.
Yeah, I have. It's, any project, give it our Jen, she'll do it.
Yeah.
I've been working since 2003 in temporary roles in the West Country, where I worked in factories. I've done it all, and I just got in there. I fixed printers.
Yeah.
That was a crazy job. I can still fix the printers at work.
My God.
I've got these skill sets which you wouldn't believe. But I'm like Nessa from Gavin and Stacey. I have done everything. My friends joke about that. And that has equipped me with the skill set on moving to London and I moved in 2008, all the graduate roles gone. And it was just, what am I going to do next? Just roll up your sleeves, get involved, contract after contract, and eventually land that permanent contract. And that mindset's never changed. I'm a doer. And on top of that now, I have learned the skills of improvisation. So when I go to board meetings, I don't want to be told no. I'm a little CEO really. Just need a business idea. I don't want to be told no. So I make sure I don't get a no. I work on it for ages. I've got the foresight to strategize beforehand. I don't do things in a rush. And I think about these things for months before they happen. Because when, all these fires are going out and then, this big thing comes, right, I can park that.
Yeah.
I've done the prep work.
You're ready for it.
Ready for this now. What do I need to do? Right, get the sleeves rolled up and off I go. And I'm a hard worker. But I do shut down at 5:30. I'll take the dog for a walk.
Good on you.
What's Corey?
Balance is the key to life.
Yeah. And my friends say, I've never met anyone as busy as you. But it's not busy with work. I'm busy at work and working hours. Life makes me busy.
Yeah.
I enjoy life, and I have to, because you're only here for a minute.
Oh, no, 100%. I could not. Yeah, we actually touched on that just before we started the pod as well. But you see, it all comes down to accountability. We spoke about accountability just before this, when we talk about mental health and how do you support yourself and how do you support the people around you. But that just comes down to accountability.
Yeah.
That's it, really.
Yeah.
So you've rolled up your sleeves and you just said, I'm going to change, I'm going to move contract to contract, finally getting a permanent job, and then off the back of it, even if you don't have a seat in the boardroom, you make sure that your agenda has been passed.
Yeah.
That just comes down to accountability.
There is no point. There's so much change in HR that you're going to have to deal with. There is no point fighting a battle just to prove that you need to get in that room.
No.
Because you're not going to like it anyway. Often it's ego. whenever I'm in there, I'm not with these guys, but whenever I'm in there, I'm like, I'm hot. I'm out of my comfort zone. I lose the ability to talk. I feel like a huge imposter. I sit on the side of the room presenting like this, and it's just not me. It's not who I am. And, I don't know if I've got personality quirks or I know I've got neurodivergence in like dyslexia and dyscalculus, but I find that oppressing. I want to be with people, going back to the theatre where you're putting on a production, everybody plays their part and you're trusted to do it.
Like in an organization.
Yeah.
That's all you need. You want people to be trusted doing the job. That's it.
Yeah. And I'm lucky that I work with an exec team who get my quirks.
Yeah.
I found out this morning, I got a message from my pal Simon saying our CPO is here in America talking to the bank about your dog Baxter being in the office.
Are you serious?
and the whole conversation went around dogs, and I said, well, just let us know. Bark Airways can get us over if ever you need. I feel completely celebrated and looked after.
That's brilliant
by my exec team.
That's brilliant. But that is culture, though.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jen, for people who are perhaps not in your headspace, and I think it's a great headspace that you're in, which is fantastic. I speak to a lot of people, and I can tell that, the action that you're taking have allowed you to be, in the position that you are today. So, but for people who are not, and for the people who are struggling, and we know it's a tough time, and I mean, it's just sad that after a year and a half, almost 2 years, we're still saying it's tough times, and hopefully, this things changes. But for people who are not in your headspace, what can they do today to make a change?
Wow. They can give me a call, and I'll listen to them. I mean that. If anyone that you think is struggling and you think, I'm more than happy to talk to them as a peer.
Oh, that's very generous.
And I'll recommend them to Plumm. But genuinely, the fight I've got is going back to theatre and going back to improv. I'm not saying you have to do an improv class, but it's about finding the joy in things. And if you find the joy in thing, you can build on it. Even if it's like a negative, find the joy out of the negative and you can build up from that. If you have a relationship with someone that, on your board, in your exec team, think about the gifts that you can give them, the emotional gift or the physical gift, to improve that relationship, to make them feel heard. I'm sorry that you're not being heard. It's a horrible place to be, and it's a lonely place to be. If you make someone else feel heard, particularly in your senior team, they'll support you, and you'll get there. It's about getting advocates in your business. Don't focus on the seat or in the room that you're not on. Does it really matter? No, you're getting paid. If you're not getting paid, get out. If you're not getting paid enough, you're valuable. You have to know your own worth. I half the time don't. I think that's a problem I have, because I always put everyone else's needs before mine. But I genuinely think, try and find the joy, and get advocates in the business by overstretching and just giving that gift. It could be an energy gift, it could be a physical gift. I talked about this last week. I was at a round table. One of my directors loves Napoleonic history, and I haven't found anything yet, but I'm looking for books. He doesn't know this. I don't think he'll listen to the whole thing of this, so hopefully he never gets to quote this. But I look for books and things like that when I'm out, because I think, would Lee like this? And it's knowing your people, because then they know that you care, and then they treat you like a human being. and it helps you get out of that headspace. But if you are not being treated well and you feel that this is a challenge that's too much, life is too short. And if you can, make plans to get out, because no organization is worth your health.
No, your cup needs to be full first.
Yeah.
That's super important.
Because in HR, people take from you, particularly in an environment like that.
Yeah.
And you end up forgetting yourself. And, you know, someone very wise in my past told me, nobody talks about their work on their deathbed.
Oh, wow, that's deep.
And that is something, he also said you can't spend £1 on the back. So I say that at every annual review. But when he told me that one, because he works with people who are passing on.
Oh.
And when he told me that one, I thought, oh, that's interesting.
So true.
You have to get on board with, this is a long life, a long career. Is it worth being miserable? Is it worth getting on that seat with the level of stress that you are going to encounter by just being on that seat? Nah, we've already got enough stress. Just get on with the job.
Yeah. Well, Jen, thank you. That was really beautiful. I think that's a very beautiful end to this pod, and hope that helps a lot of people listening, and hope people listening who are maybe unfortunately in that headspace or in that environment are able to make those changes internally, or try and find a different environment.
Yeah.
And grow from there. But Jen, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and today was just even more magical because we're sitting in person finally. We've been wanting to do this for a long time, but we're waiting for this new studio to be built. And so you're one of the first guests, and really thank you once again for coming and for accepting this invitation. And yeah, I mean, really valuable insights, and hopefully you also enjoyed it as much as I did. And everyone listening, I know Jen has offered for a phone call. We're not going to be putting her phone number on this description.
I'll put Boris
Johnson's but you would all know where to find her on LinkedIn, and you can obviously drop her a direct message. But thank you so much for that offer as well, Jen. That was really generous of you. And thank you.
No problem. Thank you.